Good morning, everybody. I'm Catherine Bloomfield. I'm the Executive Director of iHuman Youth Society here in
I'm the Executive Director of the Old Strathcona Youth Society.
And what we wanted to share with you this morning is our perspective as youth-serving agencies who do not, neither one of our agencies have a housing function in terms of having our own residences or anything like that. So we see the youth and are trying to bridge their access to very limited resources in the city. This is meant to go on a timer, so we'll see if it clicks through here. There we go. Woo, I did it. So Karen's going to tell you a little bit about the Old Strathcona Youth Block.
Yeah. So basically what the Old Strathcona Youth Society is we are an information and referral service on just off White Ave, close to the farmers market in the city here. We started in 1998 after several social workers were noticing that there was a lot of youth hanging out in the area and had no services. The only thing at the time was the Yes, which was a shelter component, and that was farther down the Ave. They had nothing for resources, for referrals, for information, and all of the services that were for youth at the time were downtown. So what they did was they started up a one-stop shop basically for the youth in the area to access information referrals, and we provide outreach workers from a lot of the services that are downtown. We bring them to the Old Strathcona Youth Society for the youth access there. So we have STI nurses come in, addictions workers, and John Howard Society has an outreach worker come in. We have NA meetings, AA meetings, that type of thing. We have very little regular programming, so it's quite a low barrier drop-in place for the youth to access their services. And what we do is we build relationships with the youth so that we can find out from them where they want to go, what they need, and then we provide the referrals from there. Our population is 14 to 24, very similar to iHuman. And I would say 90% of the youth that we see are struggling with homelessness or on some sort of spectrum where homelessness can certainly be an issue in the near future. They're precariously housed, they don't have a really good job that's going to cover rent every single month, that type of thing. So that's us kind of in a nutshell.
And so the pictures you're seeing here are a combination of pictures from Old Strathcona Youth Society and iHuman, and they represent the faces of the youth that both our agencies work with. And as Karen said, probably about 90% of the youth at iHuman as well are dealing with homelessness. And I would hazard a guess that 100% of the youth who've ever come to iHuman have at some point in their time, in their life, been homeless. And so what we wanted to show you is the faces of those young people. And these are the young people that are struggling in our city right today, wondering where they're going to sleep tonight. So what we wanted, just quickly, what iHuman does is we work with youth that are 12 to 24. We use art as our engagement tool with them, so any kind of creative outlet that the youth want to explore, we're using that as a way to gain their trust, and then hopefully through that, build that trust relationship that Karen talked about to have them reconnect to the services in the community and try to bridge some gaps. Karen is going to go through the barriers as we see them for young people in our city.
Catherine, we're chatting.
That's so funny.
Ridiculously long list of barriers that youth face. So I'm just going to run through them quickly here. And it's not inclusive. There's always separate things, different stories, different issues that come up that somebody's going to face that's going to be a barrier to housing. So initially we came up with race. Race is definitely one of the top barriers for housing for youth. Age, of course. Lack of ID. A lot of the youth that we work with don't have any ID, and as soon as they get their ID, it's lost, stolen within days, so it's really, really difficult for them to keep ID. Transportation is a huge barrier. Lack of references. A lot of youth want to get an apartment for the very first time, don't have any references, don't have any close family relatives or anybody that can kind of speak for them, so that's really a difficult one as well. Drug and alcohol use is quite prevalent. Mental health issues that are either undiagnosed or untreated. Developmental delays. Sexual orientation. There's a big correlation between LGBTQ youth and homelessness. There's a high percentage in that sector as well. Family unit dysfunction, family violence, financial is one of the biggest barriers. Damage deposit is extremely difficult for youth or anybody who is underemployed to manage for the first time. And then if they lose their place or they need to move, to get a damage deposit for the second time is really hard as well. Early trauma and brain development is an issue. Criminal record or justice involvement can be a barrier as well. Young parenting, underemployment, schooling, and lack of appropriate social knowledge. A lot of the work that we do at the OSYS, and I imagine at Human as well, is role modeling and mentoring the youth, just to basically show them that things that are acceptable, things that are necessary to, like behaviors that are necessary to keep an apartment. A lot of youth will find that if they get an apartment, then they really want to help out their street friends. So then that becomes a huge issue with the other tenants in the apartment building, with noise and that kind of a thing. So with all the good intentions that they have, it's just not effective to keep the place. Those are the kinds of things that we try to role model and teach as well.
And the second half of what we wanted to share with you quickly is the impacts then that we see in the youth that we are helping as a result of their precariously housed situations. So most of these relate to what I would suggest the overarching umbrella then is a sense of isolation, a sense of exclusion from community, from society, and that impacts then their engagement in community. So things like, if you're homeless, obviously you don't have a place to shower, you don't have a place to wash your clothes, you don't have a place to get a good night's sleep, to eat. Those things impact your physical ability to enter into society and appear as though you're a happy human being. If you're hungry, sleep deprived, you're not going to come off that way. So there's certainly the impact of ostracization, exclusion from public places. New policy here, even in the library, that you can't sleep. And I appreciate the library needs to offer a service to all of the citizens of Edmonton or come and use the library. But the library, as in other places, parks, those are public spaces. And as a citizen, you should be able to act in a way that you wish to, as long as someone else is not being harmed. So if that means you're sleeping on a bench, leaning up against a tree, having a snooze, it shouldn't matter whether that's me in my nice dress doing that, enjoying the beautiful day that's outside, or if it's a young person whose jeans are ripped up, scruffy, and maybe looks like or smells like they are homeless. That shouldn't matter. It's a public space. And to that, I think that just emphasizes the idea that the young people that we at both of our agencies deal with don't feel like they're part of Edmonton. Where they feel safe is at agencies or with certain people that make them, that witness them, that see them as a human being. And so it's about we as a city creating more of those spaces or supporting more of those spaces so that our young people specifically, because that's who we're both championing for, can have dignity and can participate in the community. So one of the projects that both Karen and I have been working on for the last couple of years is something through the Old Strathcona Mapping Committee, which looks at where youth feel they are safe and unsafe in this city, and what does that translate to. And transportation is a big thing that came out of that. Housing is the other thing. Feeling banned from, or experiencing bans, experiencing racism. All of those impact a youth's ability to function in a healthy way, to hold down a job, to keep an apartment or keep housing stable, to be employed. The youth that we both work with, as Jay said, nobody chooses to be homeless. These young people are homeless because of circumstances, in the majority of cases, that is beyond their control. And as Mayor Mandel said, the youth don't, for some of them it's safer to be on the street than to be at home. And we need to recognize that, and we need to then know that we as citizens need to provide some safe places for our young people. So not enough's being done.
The question was, what's being done? And we had not enough. But there are some shelters in the city. The Youth Empowerment and Support Services has a shelter for youth aged 15 to 21. They work with low barrier youth, and they work in a rapid rehousing model. So they like to see the youth that come in. They want to work with them real quick and get them rehoused as quickly as possible to try to avoid the entrenchment in the streets, which is really, really important. The Hope Mission also has a youth shelter 16 to 22 years old. That's difficult for couples or families. There's no access for that. NOVA is another fairly new residence through Edmonton John Howard Society. They work with youth 16 to 24. They have 3 rest beds, which are kind of rotating. If somebody comes in that night, then they can use it. If they choose to come in the next night, they can use it. If they don't, then the bed's starting for somebody else. And then they have 17 state apartment areas that are, I think, about 18 months transitional housing. And then there's Inner City Youth Housing Project. They go up to 18 years, and that's a group home model. And then basically what else we have is some emergency access for adults, like 18 and over, and then the agencies that work with youth are trying to work collaboratively together as much as possible on education, some research, and also best practice to better serve this population. We have our Old Strathcona Community Mapping Group that meets monthly. We've done 3 different research projects, and we have a new proposal in for a study on social exclusion and bans and how that affects the youth. Homeward Trust Youth Systems Steering Committee, both Catherine and I are on. MAPS group working with mental health is another one, another MAPS group working with LGBTQ youth, and then community groups working with similar populations, all trying to get together as much as possible and discuss the crisis that is housing, and seriously, it is a crisis for youth. The Nova House opened up in 2009, I think.
Or later than that, 11.
And it's just full. It's full all the time, and we need more. We need housing.
So we had a quick top 6 list. So we cut out a few of them. These are in no particular order, but obviously we feel we need temporary shelter for young families and couples. I just had an experience the other week, and this was a lovely young couple with a little baby, and I could just see the cycle beginning, that dad was fine to go stay somewhere else because provincial government would give mom and baby a place to stay. Mom didn't want to leave dad. You know, they're a couple, she feels safe with him. But nope, if dad's in the room, even though the money's being spent, you're no longer allowed to stay in this hotel. And so you've got mom, baby, and dad. They're all like 18-year-olds. Baby's 1-year-old. And then provincial government says, well, and I knew they were going to do it. I know they have to. They have to call child welfare because now that baby's not safe. There's no logic. So we need to think about things differently and think about how it's impacting our young people. Tolerant shelters, damage deposits for young people to help them out. They want to keep these places. They want to be safe. We'd like to see training for landlords so that they can understand the stories of the people that are living in their buildings, understand that these are people too, and everyone's got a story, and if you know that background, you maybe be a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more about sharing and teaching that person how to respect your building and how to create community in your building. And we'd like to see that for the youth too, that they have deficit in that area. They don't know how to do that. So let's help them, and we'll create a group of young people. I mean, Canadians, the poor in Canada donate more than the rich. So let's get the poor employed, housed, and all of us will be able to experience some benefits there. And for us, that means you gotta, as obviously caring, compassionate people here, you need to get your elected officials at all government levels to say this is an important issue and demand that we do things differently. Let's step out of the box and look for policy and practice that works together, not against each other.
Thank you very much.